What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review, and this time we're taking a look at The Founder, starring Michael Keaton. The Founder tells the story of Ray Kroc, a struggling salesman who one day discovers Mac and Dick McDonald, who have a fast food chain known as the McDonald system, which utilizes the Speedy system, which is a quick way of making food. And of course, Mr. Ray Kroc saw franchise potential in this little restaurant, and hence here we are now in the year 2021, and McDonald's is pretty much one of the biggest fast food chains in the entire nation and across the world. This tells the story of the humble beginnings of McDonald and how Ray Kroc pretty much became the visionary that he was. All right, so knowing what we know about Ray Kroc and how he pretty much swindled the McDonald's brothers out of the McDonald's business by just pretty much being a ruthless, cutthroat businessman, this movie does tell the story about how Ray Kroc was basically an entrepreneur and somebody who saw franchise potential and took away a business from two brothers who wanted to keep something very, very local. Ray Kroc wanted to expand upon that idea. This movie tells a story about how Ray Kroc did that, and how you're going to feel about Ray Kroc on a personal level is entirely up to you. If you're a businessman, you can understand where Ray Kroc was coming from. But if you're looking at it from someone who's not someone who's in the business, you pretty much just see a guy screwing around with these two other guys who pretty much who pretty much came from, humble beginnings, and they pretty much had their idea and visions taken away from them. And you're gonna look at Ray Kroc as a dickhead. It's really up to how you want to view Ray Kroc. Me personally, I'm gonna look at Ray Kroc from right down the middle, understanding where he sees in McDonald's and knowing that you can make a lot of money from franchising like fast food, especially from a 1954 standpoint. You know where he's coming from, but on a human level, you also know that he did some really dickhead, shady things. But to the founder's credit, to this film's credit, it doesn't demonize Ray Kroc. I think it kind of dimwits the McDonald's brothers just a little bit. But overall, I think John Lee Hancock and his writer Robert Schmiegel did an overall solid job at pretty much trying to take a neutral stance while telling this story, not demonizing Ray Kroc and also not making the McDonald's brothers look out to be a bunch of locals who don't know anything. And one of the main things I do like about this movie, really, in addition to the story, it's the cast. Like, the cast in this movie is fantastic. I thought Michael Keaton as Ray Kroc put on an excellent performance. He really captured the personality that I can see Ray Kroc having. Like this guy who is in his middle age, who is struggling to make ends meet, who just stumbles upon this small idea, and then he has the idea, and then he has the vision to pretty much make this small idea into a really big idea. And this movie pretty much covers all the events that all the key things Ray Kroc did to pretty much take the McDonald's franchise to the next level, with the addition of basically screwing out Dick and Mac McDonald, played by Nick Offerman, and the grossly underrated John Carroll Lynch. So, not to mention, I really like the chemistry just in general between Michael Keaton, Offerman, and Lynch. I thought the three of them work really, really well off one another. And some of my favorite scenes of this film is just these three interacting with one another. The dinner scene where the McDonald's brothers tell Ray the story is one of inspiration, and you can really see the hard work that Dick and Mac really put into trying to make this McDonald's burger stand into a reality. And you can appreciate that blue collar hard work they put into it. And I thought Offerman and Lynch did a fantastic job at just bringing that to life. In addition to that, this movie also has Laura Dern, Linda Cardellini, Patrick Wilson, who play their roles well. Linda Cardellini plays a woman who would eventually become Ray Kroc's third wife. Laura Dern plays his current wife. If there's any criticism that people can direct toward this movie, is that it never really dove right into Ray Kroc's personal life. It mostly focused on his business life. From a personal standpoint, Ray Kroc was a guy who he had three marriages pretty much, and he basically stole one of his friends, his wife, from pretty much from him. I'm glad that the movie chose to focus more on the business aspect of Ray Kroc, since I think that's the most fascinating part of Ray Kroc's life. His personal life, I think his personal life would have demonized the man. Since Ray Kroc, since people do have a mixed opinion on Ray Kroc and how he handled his taking of the McDonald's empire, I think his personal life would have demonized him more than maybe he should have been. But other than that, performance-wise, I think everyone in the cast did a fantastic job. I think the story is overall really, really solid. I do think some of story aspects and some of the cast can be a little bit underutilized. Like the movie tries to build on the romance between Linda Cardellini and Michael Keaton, but I don't think they have enough scenes to really develop anything. Laura Dern, who plays Ray's estranged and current wife, um, their life is pretty much on the rocks, and it and I don't know. To me, it doesn't really paint either one of them in a good light. Ray Kroc is blinded by ambition, and his wife and his marriage is failing him, while all the while you have his wife at that point who is just staying with this man for the sake of staying with this man. I'm of two minds about that. Like for a movie, it makes for good drama in terms of its real life counterpart. Not exactly sure how I'm not exactly sure how that all transpired in real life. But that's neither here nor there. Like I said, this movie to me is not about the life and times of Ray Kroc. It's about how Ray Kroc became the businessman he became, and the empire he created with McDonald's. And we see all the steps he goes through, meeting up with certain key players who would be really influential into the McDonald's growth. Finding out that he can put McDonald's into the real estate game, where he can own the land and the property, and have control over almost everything. It's things like that is what made Ray Kroc a very ruthless businessman and a man who was able to weasel his way into getting an empire. He made a handshake agreement with the McDonald's brothers that he pretty much went back on, really showing that he's a piece of shit. And the McDonald's brothers got robbed out of royalties that would be the equivalent of $100 million today, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, like Ray Kroc, for all the good things he did by bringing McDonald's to the forefront, he did a lot of shady shit. But I would say this though, Michael Keaton managed to make Ray Kroc into a likable, relatable person. Like if you're a struggling businessman, you can relate to someone like Ray Kroc. He's someone who does his job to the best of his abilities, but he just can't get a win. And then he stumbles across something that he sees potential in. I mean, yeah, his heart is in the right place as to what he wants to do. He just goes about it in a very, very shady way. And I think the scene that most encapsulate this is when he pretty much compares McDonald's to the American flag and to the church as an American institution, as the epitome of what Americana is. I think to me that encapsulates exactly what Ray Kroc wanted to do. He wanted to make McDonald's into the American institution that it was. So from that aspect, I do have respect for him for his business savvy. On the other aspect, I lose respect for him because he went about it in a very just shady, dickhead kind of way, and to the point where he pretty much swindled two men out of their business. To put it mildly. So yeah. So in terms of story wise, that's how I feel about it. In terms of overall direction of the movie itself, I think this is a beautifully done movie. I am a sucker for period piece movies. I like the mid '50s aesthetic from the wardrobe and the cars. This movie's got really good cinematography to it, and I just really like seeing just the humble beginnings of what McDonald's was, which was just a glorified burger stand that eventually became into the fast food chain that it is today. Uh, so yeah, those are just my overall thoughts on The Founder. I highly recommend this movie. It gets a 9 out of 10 for me. If you have not seen it, give it a watch. I think you will not be disappointed. So yeah, I'm AJ Legend. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below, and I'll check you back next time for more.